Doctor's visits are not worth your time and money if you do not get to the root cause of the underlying problem or condition. With over 25 years of experience as a healthcare provider and functional medicine practitioner, I'm committed to leaving no stone unturned in optimizing your health. We provide holistic healthcare utilizing 21st century technology. It's time for you to feel informed and empowered by your healthcare provider so that you can get back to caring for your family, serving your community, and enjoying the life you have. I think that many women become disengaged from their bodies. And I mean that because the hats women wear, they're working in or outside the home or both. They have children, a husband, parents, friends, social expectations. The list is endless of what women are doing on any given day. So I think that, and this is just from experience of talking to hundreds upon hundreds of women for the last 12 years, I think if their period is not messing up in some obvious way, I think that they don't necessarily connect other symptoms that they may begin to experience and connect that to hormones. So it's so much more than just what's happening in our cycle. Certainly, perimenopause is characterized by you begin to not ovulate regularly. That's really what the root cause of a lot of these symptoms in this season of life we refer to as perimenopause is. And if you're not trying to conceive, you're obviously not tracking whether or not you're ovulating. So that doesn't dawn on you as important. And you can still have a period even though you did not ovulate. So why do we care about that? Well, when the follicle's released from the ovary, it leaves behind a little scar referred to as the corpus luteum, which is then responsible for producing the bulk of progesterone for the second half of the cycle. So if that's not happening properly, robustly, then our two main hormones, our estrogen and progesterone, get out of right relationship with each other. And women can begin to experience a host of symptoms, very much related to how they bleed. It can become extremely heavy, clotty, painful when that has not been the case for you across your life. And then the more subtle symptoms that I think it's important that you're aware of, the mood changes. You know your baseline. You know if you're not typically a very irritable, grumpy, anxious, or even feeling depressed kind of person. You know what your normal is. So paying attention. And two, it's, helpful our spouses know us well. And to ask your spouse, your best friend, hey, are you noticing? Because maybe I find that women kind of will want to keep that inside. They may be feeling very off, but they try to mask and put on their happy face to just go do their day. So those mood changes. And then even more subtle things than that, brain fog, joint pain. Joint pain can be very much associated with these hormonal fluctuations. Itchy skin. I actually had that. And I read, here recently that kind of falls under that umbrella of perimenopause. And I'm thinking back to my early 40s and my word, the misery of the itchy skin and just clawing myself and thinking, what has happened? And I spent years trying to buy a lotion or something and nothing helped. And so looking back, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have known. I wish, and it didn't even dawn on me to speak to my provider about that. Because what we think, period, itchy skin, we don't see any correlation. So I think the take-home point is knowing your body, knowing yourself, appreciating that, and then being sensitive when things start to change in a direction where you're not feeling your best self. And these are real issues. They very much impact quality of life. Sleep can become dysregulated. Energy, I talk to women who sleep 8 hours, but then feel like poop on a plate the next day, despite having, rested an adequate amount. So there's so many little layers here. And so that's why having a conversation with someone like me who studies this extensively, eats, breathes, and sleeps it, selfishly for myself, because I'm living till I'm 120. So all of you just get to come along with me, and I want to see women thriving throughout all the seasons of their life, not just in our 20s and 30s. I feel like I'm thriving now at 62, almost 63, more than I was 20 years ago. So knowing your body, honoring those changes when they start to happen. Don't berate yourself. You're not weak. You're not crazy. Don't let yourself be told you're crazy and be treated disrespectfully by a provider who does not understand this. An analogy I often use with patients is that if, say, I'm going to gather up a patient, we're going to jump in my car. Well, there happens to be a mosque here in our town. And if we were to drive over to the mosque and knock on the door and someone comes and we're like, "Hi, we're here for you to talk to us about Jesus," we're asking nice people the wrong question. They don't have the frame of reference to answer our question or to understand what we're asking. I don't know if that's something that's PC I can put out there, but it's not a disrespectful parallel to draw, in that there are certain providers that, though they might identify as women's health providers, but you kind of have to think about, where does their expertise really lie? And in my experience in this area where I practice, I can't speak to every women's health provider, but most of them are very traditional in that their focus post-residency is obstetrics and gynecology. So they're going to deliver babies and they're going to operate on women. And I found that those are not the people to go ask questions about these subtle changes that are happening in our bodies. Because in my experience, what I'm seeing happening is, if a woman does open up to her OBGYN about some of these problems, they are dismissed. They are written prescriptions for antidepressants or benzodiazepines because maybe they're experiencing anxiety. So, I see a lot of women come in here on Klonopin. I'm like, "Why are we on Klonopin?" "Well, I'm not sleeping." Well, do we want to take a benzo every day because we don't sleep, or do we want to figure out why we're not sleeping and then address that reason so that we don't have to use a pretty heavy-hitting pharmaceutical like that on a regular basis? So if we're summarizing hormonal symptoms that you might not think to yourself, "This is due to my hormonal changes," then I think some of those would be the dry, itchy skin, maybe rashy, weird, vague aches and pains in muscles and joints. That is not like, if you're a person who works out, you do boot camp, you do CrossFit, you run, you kind of know, if you're in a routine of working out, you know what your workout pain feels like. So I'm not speaking to that where I can clearly identify, "Oh God, I did lower body yesterday, so of course my hams and glutes hurt." But it's those vague aches and pains that are just sort of annoying and bothering you. And then the mood instability. I've had women talk to me about anxiety when that's never been kind of their story. And you might just sort of blow it off and think, "Well, I'm just stressed." And I'm not necessarily saying that's a wrong thing to think. I mean, certainly stress is real and it does dramatically affect us, and it can affect us in our mood, in our resiliency, our tolerance to the stress that we're all under, unfortunately. Until we die, it's gonna look some kind of way. So when I'm visiting with a woman who begins to share these kinds of stories with me, my approach in every situation is always to start simple. I have lots of fancy tricks up my sleeve in the way of extra testing and all kinds of things, but those things can be costly because most of specialized functional testing is not covered by insurance. So I have to be very sensitive to that, to not blow someone's budget, in just testing. So I can learn a lot from their history. So I spend 90 minutes with a new patient, asking a lot of questions, trying to get a handle on what her life looks like, what her day looks like, and then trying to begin to make sense, because all of you are puzzles, making sense of that little human's puzzle. So we're going to start with how can we approach these hormonal imbalances holistically? Looking at you as a whole being is all that means. So we want to optimize nutrition in this season of our lives. Our nutritional needs may change through this season. Where maybe when you were in your 20s and you're like, oh gosh, I really need to lose 5 pounds. And, you could kind of add an extra workout day to your routine, or maybe start cutting your calories a little bit, and you could lose that 5 pounds pretty easily. And now you're finding, that's not really working like it used to. So we've got to approach you differently. You're a dynamic being. You don't stay the same from birth to death. So we have to be sensitive to that. And that's why spending time with the patient is so important. And though I am not dissing all internet influencers and how they're delivering information, for me personally, I prefer relationship. I tell patients, it's like we started dating today. We're in a relationship. And for any relationship to be successful requires communication. So it's a back and forth dialogue that I have with a patient to learn as much as I can about them to begin to make sense of what their body is saying. So we do want to address nutrition and what are the needs right now. We want to make sure you're eating optimally. It is important that we all get enough fuel to fuel these beautiful machines that we walk around in every day. And I tell people often, are you going to get in your car right now and head out, say, an hour away from you, and the arrow in your gas tank in your car is pointing straight at E? Heavens no, you're not going to, because if you do that, you're going to end up on the side of the road, and that's inconvenient. So why do we do that to these machines? So I'm not going to feel great if I don't have enough food on board. It's like gasoline in a car. So actually optimizing caloric intake and protein intake, but in quality sources. And I go into detail with patients in that to try to find what's going to work best for them as an individual. So the nutrition is foundation to anything else. And that does speak to hormone balance. I know many people might be like, well, what does that got to do with anything? Everything. It has everything to do. Our hormones are made from cholesterol. So we need to be eating optimal whole foods, because those nutrients are the building blocks of hormones. The other thing is optimizing your sleep. If you're not sleeping, and if the hormonal disruptions are contributing to poor sleep, then we definitely have to get at that. But then if you have terrible habits, hi, it's me, I have terrible sleep habits. So I can certainly relate to that. But if you have like poor sleep hygiene, a lot of young mothers tell me that time after they get their kids to bed is like their time. And I don't want to jerk that away from you, because I remember that. I remember that season of young kids and getting everyone to bed and then feeling like I had a minute just to sit and breathe. But you got to balance that desire for that quiet time with your need to sleep. And 7 to 8 hours, I would say, for the large majority of us, is what we need. And without that, I have no magic wand to wave over my head or anyone else's to correct why you feel horrible. So that's foundation to anything I'm going to do, no matter what you walk in here to tell me about. Because our resiliency to stress has to come from somewhere. So what am I giving my body to be strong against what's coming at me if I'm not eating right, if I'm not sleeping right? The other thing we have to talk about is how are we moving our bodies? That is just, it's going to be a discussion I'm going to have with every single patient every single day till I stop doing this. Moving our bodies is the anti-aging magic wand. If anything existed that has significant power over my quality of life, it is that. There is no substitute for it. So that's something I'm going to address. Even in a perimenopausal woman, I'm going to be like, okay, where can we fit in 30 minutes? What works better for you? Are you the early riser? You want to do it then? I'm not. I do mine at the end of the day. That works well for me, my body, my schedule. Working out at 6 o'clock does not jack me up to where I can't go to sleep. So every one of us is an individual. So figuring that out, that's foundation. We can't build a house on top of a cracked foundation. It's going to come in on itself. So anything I want to build for this patient has to start right food, right sleep, the right exercise. The other thing is, what is your stress? What does that look like? Are you in a really difficult season right now? A lot of patients that I take care of that are in my age range, 50s, 60s, are dealing with caring for elderly parents. So that's a huge challenge. I have one patient that spends the night with her parents twice a week, works full time, leaves work, goes to the parents' home, spends the night, has to wake up numerous times maybe to help one of the parents to the restroom. So how beautiful is that she's honoring her parents in that way, and I admire her, but I see what a toll it's taking on her. And the last time she came for a checkup, I walked out to the waiting room and saw her sitting there, and I was like, I'm so glad you came, because I was worried that she would cancel her appointment, because she's verbalized to me that, hey, I'm not really doing a lot of what you've talked to me about. And I'm like, I know. You're surviving right now. Do the best you can. And I feel like she is, and it can't be helped. She's in this mode of being caregiver, and I'm just trying to help her weather it the best that she can. So if we're in a better place physically, emotionally, mentally, when we have to walk through something hard, I think it serves us well. I think that strength, that resiliency helps me weather. Yes, what I do is stressful. I don't dig ditches all day. My job is not physically demanding, but it's emotionally and mentally demanding. So there's sometimes days that I will leave here and I don't want to talk to another human till the next day, because my problem-solving skills are worn out. You know, my words are gone, and I just need to recoup. So I get that. I understand how that feels. So what does your stress look like? What can you do to change it? Is it something that's modifiable? Then can we please modify that? Because what I don't think any of us appreciate is that stress is real. It's not you or me being a weenie. Oh, I'm so stressed. Like it's a cliche almost, but it's real. There are books written about it. It's real. So we can just put that to rest. It is a real thing. And then how do we navigate it without it taking us out? So we're going to talk about that. And then the last thing, when I'm addressing any kind of issue, and hormonal issues fall into this, is what do you think? And what I mean by that is, what's going on up here in your internal dialogue? What is your overall worldview and outlook on your life? I am obnoxiously positive. I've kind of always been that way. Despite hard things, I still remain hopeful. I'm thankful. And I know, though, that might sound woo-woo, and you might roll your eyes and be like, well, what does that got to do with anything? Everything. Absolutely everything. So you having a positive outlook, you remaining upbeat, hopeful, yes, it doesn't negate the hard thing you're sitting in. Like, my being hopeful now does not dismiss that, yes, my husband passed away. That's the hard thing, that has been recent in my life. And I'm not dismissing the pain of the loss or the tragedy of it. I'm not oblivious to that, but I make a very specific choice to remain hopeful for my future and to be thankful for what I do have. And I think that has carried me well and served me well and has kept me healthy and able to continue to do this and minister to other people who are going through hard things. So those 5 things are what I'm going to get at no matter what you come here to talk to me about. But all of those things do have great weight in optimizing hormones across our lifespan. So that's where we're going to begin. And that is going to look different for every patient that I talk to, because everyone that walks in here is a weirdo. And that makes my job very interesting, but also very challenging. So I'm very much a proponent of keeping meal planning very simple. And I tell my women patients in particular, don't feel like you have to be Rachel Ray. I can cook decently, but I don't have the gift of presentation. So it might not look, fantastic, but it will taste good and it will nourish me. So if I'm trying to just keep my foundation food items very simple, turkey, I love organic chicken thighs. I prefer the thighs, but I can do a breast just fine. If I'm going to do a chicken breast, I'm going to marinate it overnight with some olive oil and some spices, and that seems to help it be more moist and tender, because that's where I don't like chicken breasts. So that's foundation. And here's the other thing about me. I don't care. I'll eat the same thing 7 days in a row. Does not faze me. So I need y'all to get more like that, where you can be okay with repetitiveness, with the mundane of just real food that you just eat because you're putting fuel in your engine. So tonight I get to go out to a lovely restaurant with my daughter and some friends and have dinner. So yeah, that's a special occasion. I'll have a glass of wine, I'll have a lovely meal, we'll probably share a dessert. So yeah, that's going to be a marvelous experience. But the rest of the days of this week have just been put gas in my car. I don't care. So chicken, turkey, we have a lot of hunters in our area. So if you have deer meat in your freezer, you are golden, because that's a happy, frolicking, organic animal, gets a bullet, goes to Jesus. There we go, in your freezer. Cottage cheese is big right now. And if you tolerate dairy, cottage cheese is not a bad thing. I would say, please, if your budget will tolerate the organic one, let's do that, please. I buy the Good Culture lactose-free one. It's very versatile. It can be blended into things. You can use it as is and add fruit. Or when I was growing up, my mom used to cut up tomatoes and salt and pepper in cottage cheese. So that's kind of a memory of my mom eating it that way. So that's super high in protein. And again, if you tolerate dairy, it's a lovely, inexpensive addition. Salmon is awesome, very high in protein. I'm a little particular about when I want like grilled salmon, but for some reason I have no problem with canned salmon. I can like open that, throw it on a salad. It's got some lovely omega-3s, but it's very high in protein, and I buy good quality, at our local health food store. So that's super easy. Canned tuna, same thing. But tuna, the reason we talk about tuna, like especially when women are pregnant, is he's a big fish. He's a very big fish. So he's going to have more toxicity. Salmon's a little fish. He's got less toxicity. So I like sushi. If you go out to eat, grab some sushi, salmon, tuna, whatever. So those kind of basic proteins, keeping those on hand. I keep sweet potatoes on hand as my complex carbohydrate, quinoa. Sometimes I mix quinoa and brown rice. I like those together. I love the texture. I love edamame. I throw that in. I love that as well. It's high in protein. I do a lot of cruciferous vegetables, so broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels. Those are staples for me. So I tend to keep those types of things around, and I can throw a meal together very quickly. I prep typically on the weekends when I'm home, the organic chicken thighs and grass-fed hamburger patties. Those are typically my two protein sources. Then I'll just decide from day to day what carb and what veggie I want. But I'm not one that suggests we eliminate whole food groups. I don't really think that's a sustainable approach to eating. And I've talked to a ton of people in 12 years. I'm telling you right now, if I give people too many don'ts, their eyes are gonna roll back in their head. So I really try to say keep it very simple, eat like your great-grandparents would eat. So that's staying on those outer edges of the grocery store. That's legit how we accomplish that. Now, if I need to go in those middle aisles, I might be getting canned tomatoes, canned black beans, some things that staple items, but not like packaged meals or snacks or treats, stuff like that that's got all those toxic chemicals and seed oils and all that nonsense. So it's my mantra is keep it simple. Throw a dead chicken in a crock pot. You got a plan. In no area of our lives, professionally, financially, in our marriage, in no way are we successful without a plan. You've got to plan. You have to make a date with yourself. So I tell my women, get your calendar out, plot out what the kids are doing, where y'all are going to be that week, what's going on, who's got what, and then make a date with yourself. When am I going to the grocery store? Or my daughter yells at me and says, why don't you do grocery pickup? I don't know. I just like going in the store. If you don't, then don't. Do the pickup. So make a plan. When am I doing that? And when am I going to prep a few things to be ready for our week? I mean, if you don't, what's the saying? If you don't plan, you don't.
Then you plan to fail.
If you don't plan, you plan to fail. I'm saying it wrong, but you get my gist. It just, there's no way around it, y'all. In the convenience food, instant gratification, microwave society that we are in right now is killing us. Literally killing us. It's killing our kids. We're teaching them terrible habits. We're addicting them to sugar and processed food from the time they're toddlers. You know, when I hear a mom say in conversation with me, she makes mention of her children being picky, I'll look at her and say, well, who did that? Now, setting aside children with disabilities, major texture issues, I recognize that as a thing. I am not talking about those children. I'm talking about like my 7-year-old granddaughter, you know, who wants to have opinions. And strangely enough, when she's with me, she eats what I put down in front of her. Now, when she's with mama and daddy, of course, she's going to give them a run for their money because that's what kids do. So, being aware too of what example are we setting for our kids. You know, I have very adult conversations with Rory about health, nutrition, what makes us strong. I've never approached her wanting to vilify any one food. So we don't talk about food in the context of good or bad. We talk about food in the context of health, strength, longevity. So when I see her eating like her chicken and her cucumbers and her strawberries, I'll say, oh, is that good? She's like, yes, it's good. Show me your muscles. So she does this, and she's fascinated with my biceps because I lift weights. And she'll be like, Daddy, feel Lulu's muscle, you know? And so I'll do that to her. And so I want her to begin at 7 to make the connection that food is connected to how we feel. Food makes us strong. It is a tool. It's not our enemy. And so I want her to understand that food can be fuel or it cannot be. I mean, there's really not a gray area in many foods. They're either kind of in the yes column or the no column. There's really now alcohol. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm going to dinner tonight and I'm gonna have some, but I'm very strategic. I don't drink daily. And if I say I have several social engagements in a week, which is not the norm, but occasionally that happens, then I'll be like, no, I'm just going to have club soda. I don't care. And then, okay, this restaurant, or there's one restaurant that I really love, a Cabernet they have, and I can't get it anywhere else. So I'm like, I'm going to have that when I go there. So I just pick and choose. Do I eat a dessert every night? No. Do I keep dark chocolate in my pantry and have a little bite of dark chocolate? Yes. So these things, it's keeping it simple, having a plan. And when you do that, you're nurturing yourself. And therefore, you can then turn around and nurture the other people in your life that you love. Like, I don't have young kids at home anymore, so I'm not in that phase of life. But I want to have the wherewithal to come here and nurture the patients God sends to me. Because everyone that walks through that door, I consider a divine appointment. I don't consider them an accident. They're here for a reason, and God has equipped me to help problem solve for that person. So stay on the outer edge of the store, plan, prepare, and it will not then feel like a burden. It feels like a burden when you walk in the door at 5:30 or 6 o'clock and you've done nothing and you're starving. Well, what are we going to do in those moments? We're going to take the path of least resistance. We're going to DoorDash something, or we're going to get a pizza. And if you do that once in a blue moon, is that killing us? No. But can you admit to yourself, can you look yourself in the mirror and go, is this once in a blue moon? Or is this becoming regular 2 and 3 times a week? That's regular. I'm sorry to be the fun sucker, but I want to live. And I'm not going to die by my own hand out of ignorance, or, I can't claim ignorance anymore. I know too much. So if I go back to my old ways, what is that? What do we call that? I know better. I have information now, but yet I choose to do the thing that's going to destroy me. That's rebellion. And that doesn't just hurt me. It hurts the people around me who love me. So I'm responsible to them too, even though my children are both grown and have their own lives. In some way, as their mom, I still have responsibility to them. Maybe that's a feeling I feel, and maybe mothers of adult children wouldn't necessarily share that same feeling. That's okay, but that's where my mind is. And maybe that's stemming from the fact that my kids have experienced the loss of their dad. So maybe I feel more of a heightened responsibility to be here for them as long as I can and control what I have control over. So once we've worked through those foundational issues that I mentioned previously, nutrition, sleep, movement, stress management, and having, sounds hokey, but an attitude of gratitude. Once we've nailed all that down and gotten to the bottom of all of those foundational issues, and we're still having symptoms, we're still having issues, yes, absolutely, that's just the beginning. That's where we start. And then from there, it's a deep dive into what is happening across the cycle, your menstrual cycle, which is for some women 28 days pretty consistently. Mine was. Some women are a little longer, some women are a little shorter, just that that you're knowing what your norm is and your baseline, because that helps me begin to make sense of what your body's trying to say to you. So then we figure out what are the symptoms, what is the timing of symptoms. That's very helpful. Ovulation is usually mid-cycle. Some women ovulate as early as day 11, day 1 being the day you start bleeding. Some women ovulate, early, day 11, 10, 11, 12. I've seen women on hormonal testing. Some are a little bit later ovulators, 14, 15, 16, a little bit later. So if symptoms are beginning like mid-cycle, the mood changes, you feel kind of wanchy and like you want to cut people. Migraines, that's another PMS, that's another symptom that can be related to these hormonal changes. So I dig into that. What are the symptoms? What is the timing of the symptoms? Is it throughout the whole cycle? You feel out of control, like a rat on acid, like you want to kill people all the time? So I have to get clarity on that, what that looks like for each woman. And then depending on her age, depending on the severity of her symptoms, the timing of her symptoms, I approach each person differently. If someone is, say, 45 and she's having a real heavy, mean period that's just taking her to the ground, every time it happens, clots this big, it's just miserable. I lived it. That woman I'm going to address a bit more aggressively than the 25-year-old who's got heavy periods and acne. I'm going to approach her differently than I'm going to approach the 45-year-old woman. And so again, it's individualized care. There is not a one-size-fits-all to this. There is not, let me slaughter a sacred cow real quick, stick a pellet in your hiney and send you on out the door. I'm not a fan of that, and I can talk about that another time. And I'll have some, I think, valid reasons to be concerned about that particular method of delivery. So in this video, I can't really say I would do for you A, B, C, D, because it's individual. So some of my younger women, I can use some targeted supplements, not pharmaceuticals, to optimize the hormones and bring the cycle and the period into balance and for it to behave. And the supplements, being that they're not pharmaceuticals, they don't have an instantaneous benefit or effect. I prepare the patient and, offer them a couple of options, because at the end of the day, y'all are in charge of this relationship, not me. I'm here to be on your team, to be a source of information, to help you begin to make sense of your body, and also to encourage you that you're not cuckoo, that what you're going through is very real and can be very detrimental to your quality of life. So the supplement regimen for the younger woman might be very successful. And in many cases, that does work well. But occasionally I run into a situation where it's underwhelming and doesn't appear to have much benefit. So in that young woman, I may suggest, depending on, say she's got conception on her mind, she's ready, she's ready to kind of think, I may be ready to pull the trigger and start actively trying to conceive. So that woman I'm going to approach very specifically. So I just want you to be aware that you may have friends that have seen me and they may or may not share in depth the things that I've done for them or with them to help them feel better and meet their health goals. Because I would say the large percentage of people that are coming to me as new patients, when I ask, hey, how did you hear about me? They're saying, well, you work with my friend, so-and-so. Well, what I think that the friends are not telling some of y'all is the significance of the plan they've had to execute in order to get the result they wanted. Because I continually am bumfuzzled by this phenomena of people coming and asking for help with a situation, and then I begin to offer them instruction, guidance, strategy. I feel like we have a very successful conversation. They leave, we make the follow-up appointment, they come back, and it is not uncommon, because I'll sit down and look at my note from when you were first with me to remind myself what we talked about. Then, I come get you, and then we go over lab results, and the first thing I usually ask that patient on their second visit is, how's everything going? Because I'm so excited, because I'm like, we did all this good stuff, and so now it's been 6 weeks, and I've had women go, I didn't do any of that. Okay. I told the lady the other day, I said, that makes me want to come across the desk at you. Like, I want to fight you. I want to put you in a headlock. I want to bring you to my house and lock you in my guest room and be like, here's your chicken and broccoli, and let's get up and go for a walk. And it's 10 o'clock. It's time for you to go to bed. Like, I want to babysit you and I want to give you all of the things, but I can't do that. I can't go home with anyone. I can't bring you to my house because your family kind of needs you. And I have to just continually remind myself that I do not fully know what every woman, what she's walking back into, into her life once she leaves this room. And giving the patient the benefit of the doubt that they're doing the best they can with what I gave them to do. So I do try to approach it that way, but it is kind of like, in my brain, I'm like, you gave me money for me to tell you things, so I'm confused when they don't do it. And there might be 98 reasons why they didn't. And again, I think that goes back to most of us have so many plates in the air. And I think you've been doing it for so long, and you're just, and I can remember the struggle too, of you don't know how to, you feel selfish. I think we allow that negative self-talk to pummel us. You don't have time, but the child needs blah, blah, blah. They need to be here. There are all these demands, and I can't fix that for anyone. I can't fix what your life looks like. All I can do is say, here, to the best of my knowledge, here are the potential consequences of continuing to ignore your body. Am I God? No. Do I have a crystal ball? No. But look out there. How are we? What I observe is that we are not okay. There are consequences of our actions or lack of action. There are definite consequences. But I think we're in denial because we look around and we think, well, they look okay. I mean, they're still alive. Yeah, but are they on 29 pharmaceuticals? Can they run up a mountain if they want to? Can they run away from someone chasing them, trying to hurt them? Can you walk? What about if you want to go to Disney and you want to take your kids? Can you walk all over that place? Walk 15 miles in a day and not be in misery? I want to be able to walk upstairs and not huff and puff. When I was in Europe in October and we flew home, we had an hour and 34 minutes to make our connecting flight home when we landed at DFW. We were kind of made up our minds we weren't going to make it. It was just such a brief little period of time. Got through customs quickly. You have to go back through security. The line was absurd. And I looked at it and I looked at my friend. I'm like, ain't no way. We're just not going to make our flight. Well, I just had a moment of boldness come over me, and I looked at the line and I looked at a man standing across from us, and I said, we're going to miss our connecting flight home if we don't get through this line. Can we cut in front of you? And he graciously allowed us to cut. Made our way through security. Well, then we were still tight. I had to O.J. Simpson run through that airport. I mean, full out knife, bloody clown with a knife chasing me, running full out with a big backpack on. And so if you've been at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, you're in the terminal, and then you've got to go up that escalator to get to the train to take you to the next terminal. Well, what do people do when they get on an escalator? Stand there like a bump on a log, oblivious to the world around them. So I couldn't get on the escalator and go up the side of all the people. So no, I take out up those 4 flights of stairs that are pretty much at almost a freaking feels like 90-degree angle. And I'm telling you all that to say, I did it. It was pretty painful. I'd been on a 12-hour flight, so I wasn't hydrated well, hadn't eaten well, slept a little. But we did it. got on the train to go to the next terminal, and my heart rate came on down by the time I got to the very next terminal. So I didn't die. We made our flight. I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to get down on the floor and play with my granddaughters and be able to get back up off the floor. So these are things that I think about. These are things that keep me motivated. You know, and having been in nursing approaching 30 years now, I've seen a lot of death and dying that was self-inflicted. Ignorance. It's just sheer ignorance. No one is just putting the puzzle pieces together. That what we see out here and what's hurting us is preventable. So I feel a little bit like an evangelist. I feel like I want a platform. I need a stadium where I can speak to 100,000 people at one time. Like, I should have been the Super Bowl entertainment this year. You know, put me in there, coach. Let me have a moment with that crowd to give them a motivational speech about honoring the health that you currently have, not being passive about it, and protecting it. That's what this is about. This is what I do every day, is begging you to honor this that you currently have. Don't be just oblivious to it, that you're healthy, that you don't have some terrible chronic issue. And then take steps to stay healthy for yourself first. What do the flight attendants tell us on the airplanes? In the event of a loss of cabin pressure, the oxygen mask is going to come down. And who am I supposed to put it on? My neighbor sitting next to me? No. Myself. Because I can't help the neighbor next to me if I'm dead. So y'all are dead. You're walking around with a heartbeat, but many of you are dead. And if you're truthful to yourself in the dark of night, in the quiet of your bed, you would be like, yeah, you're right, Lucy, I'm dead. How can I be undead? Those 5 things I've talked about. Start there. Don't listen to the influencers on TikTok who are trying to sell you some gut test or food sensitivity test or hormone test. Those people make me want to punch a baby. Not that what they're saying is wrong or that the test is bad. That's not what I mean. That stuff is lagniappe on top of those 5 foundational issues. I'm not going to ask you to spend $400 on a gut test, a specialized gut test that is absolutely amazing. And I have learned some cool things about people's gut biome from doing this test. But I'm not going to start there. Because if you're not willing to not eat processed food 7 days a week, there's literally no point in you spending $400 on a specialized gut test that's going to tell me everything. But then what are you going to do with the information? Are you going to act on it or ignore it? And nurture yourself. If I'm talking to a woman right now, you're valuable. You're needed, not just by your family, but by the world. You were put here for a reason, to accomplish something, to raise your family, to love your family, to serve wherever it is you serve. Like, we all have purpose. Every one of us. And I don't want mine to be derailed as I was doing 15 years ago. If I had not had my personal epiphany of, ooh, I'm kind of headed somewhere I don't want to go if I don't get a grip. New Beginnings likely would not be here had I not had that moment in May of 2009 where I changed. Keep it simple, but plan and do something to protect your health. Doctor's visits are not worth your time and money if you do not get to the root cause of the underlying problem or condition. At New Beginnings, we believe in the power of preventative care as the foundation of your wellness journey. Our approach goes beyond treating symptoms. We're dedicated to uncovering the root cause of your health concerns to ensure long-term vitality. With over 25 years of experience as a healthcare provider and functional medicine practitioner, I'm committed to leaving no stone unturned in optimizing your health. I've helped countless patients with problems such as infertility, cardiovascular issues, nutrient deficiencies, thyroid imbalances, and many more. Our care is comprehensive and personalized. We not only address your current needs, but also focus on preventative measures to keep you thriving in every season of life. Here, you will never be dismissed. We provide premier, holistic healthcare utilizing 21st century technology that is tailored to your unique needs because your wellness is actually the priority. It's time for you to feel informed and empowered by your healthcare provider so that you can get back to caring for your family, serving your community, advancing in your career, and enjoying the life you have.